Hello, and welcome to our Rise of the False Gods book study. If this is your first time watching, do feel free to go to YouTube and catch our previous episodes. I'm a little bit behind on posting them because I was without my computer for a while, but it's back now. And so I will be uploading them more starting tomorrow. And again, I welcome comments and questions, and I'm so glad you are joining me. Tonight, we are going to be continuing on the chapter about how did we get here. And it's funny because, I don't realize how much things have changed since I was born. And actually, my mom was born in 1919. And that is the year the women won the vote. As we're looking at voting season, I'd like you to think about that. And we've come a long ways. Some were good, some not so good. We will talk about that as we go along. But she was just, and I thought about it the other day. She was actually born right after the pandemic of 1918. She was born in 1919. So I'm wondering how scary it had to be for my grandparents that, and actually that means my dad, who was born in 1917, would have gone through it all. Something to think about, isn't it? Oh, the change we had, and what changes will be ahead. I think we have mostly good changes, but the way it's going now, I think that we may have to change our changes. We'll think on that. So, 50 years ago, I am reading now on page 81. Woo, we're making progress. We're in the 80s. About 280 pages. I notice I'm freezing on my phone. I apologize if I'm freezing on yours, in the video, but it could be our weather pattern or something. But I do like using my phone better than using my new computer because the phone still gets a better signal. All right, back to where I was. 50 years ago, life was very different. Those born after 1970 have lived in a world unlike the previous generation. Well, we've all lived unlike the previous generation. I think I kind of did not put that very clearly when I wrote the book, because for many generations before us, before my birth and the 70s, life changed a lot. And then in 1970, it took another dramatic change. We'll be talking about that. In the 1960s, most women and wives were homemakers. Now, that's not a bad thing if that's what you want to do. And I consider myself having been amazingly wealthy. I was rich. Why? Because I could be a homemaker. Because I could be with my kids all day. Because I could grow a garden and can foods and make stuff at home and play with the kids and have coffee with the girls. It was good. But I do go on. When I say women were homemakers, that does not mean they were in any way unfulfilled and miserable. That doesn't mean I'm also saying everybody should do it. Everybody should have the opportunity and the freedom to do it if that's what they want to do. There was an old saying about a husband keeping his wife barefoot and pregnant. And that was a very derogatory term, and some people were. I mean, the women were really, had tough lives. I could do what I wanted, go where I wanted. I was very respectful. You know, I didn't just take off or act like I was a person without responsibility. But we did have the luxury of living modestly, as the book says. Modestly, some people say poor. I say modestly. We had one TV. Before people freak out about that. What, one TV? You only had one TV? Yes. And that meant togetherness. Because that meant at night we would gather around the TV and watch together. We spent time together. Now, people go off to their own room, or even if they're sitting in the room talking to you, watching TV, they're usually on their phone as well, scanning the internet. Can't we find enough peace and joy and happiness in our own home? Sometimes I think we have too much for our own good. Anyway, we were able to own a home, and I could stay home with the kids, and we did it on one paycheck. We could live on one paycheck, and we lived modestly, and it was a good thing. Okay, I enjoyed the company of other women. We had what we would call coffee clutches. That means you would put on some coffee, invite the girls over, and we would, you know, talk, solve the problems of the world, do crafty things together. It was good. And it was even good, although my marriage wasn't. But I'm very, very grateful for the good that I have. And I'm grateful for the photographs I have that remind me of a time when things were simpler and they felt safer. Yeah, we had war, we had crazy politics, we had disease, we had all kinds of things, but there was something else we had. It was like an inner serenity and a vision of a future. I find that a little harder today to look at serenity and a vision for a future, because most of the visions are kind of tense, flat, concerning. Maybe it's me, maybe it's my age. If that's it, I apologize. Please, again, I'm not asking you to agree with me. I'm asking you to listen and ponder what truth you may find, what resonates with something inside of you. And if not, let it go. Okay, there were many avenues for personal development as a homemaker, and I taught cooking classes, cake decorating classes. I studied judo. I studied and taught and performed belly dance. I was a busy girl. I had jobs. Oh my stars, I sold stuff. I sold Tupperware and coppercraft, and I did my little part, you know, bringing in a little. It was mostly little bits of spending money is all that came out to by the time you take out the expenses. But I was okay. I knew how to stretch a buck, and I still do today. I used to say, I have done so much with so little for so long that now I can do just about anything with almost nothing. And that's the truth, and I can still do it. Now we get to the negative side. In the 60s, life included male dominance in the household chauvinism, and inequality in the workplace. And actually, that is now what? 50 years later now, there is still inequality in the workplace for women. Also, for different cultural groups. For example, in the 1960s and 70s, a single woman could not get a credit card. Could not get a credit card. Now, if you're thinking politics are no big deal, if you're not paying attention to what's going on in the government, you better watch out, because these are the decisions that were made. These are the decisions we had to fight for. The outcomes we had to fight for. There are people fighting for us. I get really sick and tired. I do not approve of what's going on in our government. Now I'm going to be flat out honest. I am sick and tired of waking up every morning with a new gut punch of what horrible thing has occurred now. How many people have been hurt? How many name calling? How many lies? I'm sorry, and it's the truth, and it's not my opinion. A lot of people have opinions, but there's also the truth. Okay, I'm going to hop off of that right now. There was great inequality, and I saw it, and it was a way of life for me. A married woman could only get a credit card if her husband's name was on it. Women could not keep a job while pregnant. I know people who would lie. They just pretended they weren't pregnant until they were showing so much, and then they were required to quit. Look at the rights we have won over time. My dear friends, our rights are at risk. And if you're white and you're older and you're privileged in any way, well, you're privileged in any way, basically, for most people. Not all people. There are plenty of white people who are desperately poor and in great need and working for minimum wage jobs, which is pretty pathetic. But we still have more going for us than other cultures, than immigrants. So sorry about that. I will hop off of my soapbox now and try to continue. Women could not keep their job while pregnant. They could not complain about sexual harassment. Do you hear me? Women could not, in the 60s, women could not complain about sexual harassment. They couldn't refuse their husband sex. In my Catholic days is when I got married, and we had to have, they called them pre-Cana meetings, conferences, whatever. We had to go talk to the priest, and the priest went through his little book, and a few of the things I had to say is that, I would obey my husband, and that I would provide for his physical needs, even if I wasn't in the mood, even if it wasn't healthy for me. We were required to do that. This is my life, friends. It's probably your mother's life, your grandmother's life. This is the way it was. We've come a long way, baby, but we have fought for it. And we give thanks for every woman that fought for the freedoms that we enjoy. And if for any chance you did not vote, or you did not, try to get the changes that we need to have, please, people fought for us and did wonderful things for us to have the blessings that we take for granted. That's the problem, is we take them for granted. Okay, until 1973, women could not serve on a jury. Think about that. They could not serve on a jury. They could not be astronauts until 1978. And this is not in the book, But I know that you could not be a firefighter until maybe 10 or 20 years ago. Women could not participate in ski jumping in the Olympics until 2014. Even now, paid maternity leave is not a requirement for employers. Do you see how we've come a long way from what was? But that does not negate the opportunity and the riches that I felt I possessed because I was able to stay home and be a homemaker. I just, one of the first books I wrote, which I keep saying I'm doing it. Maybe I'll do it now during NaNoWriMo, and because I didn't get started yet, and it's already the 4th. But I wrote a book called The Bride Guide. It was a cookbook of sorts and other things. I'd written it for my best friend who was getting married, and I was pregnant with twins with a baby at home, and and I didn't have any money to get her a wedding present. And I felt so bad, and I decided I would give her, when I realized a lot of young women did not know how to really cook. And I went to cooking school. I was graduated as a chef. So that was my first book. But it was so Total Woman. Now, Total Woman was a look back in the 60s. It meant that there was I don't know if they still make it, there was a perfume called Angélie, and it said, I can bring home the bacon, fry it up in the pan, and make my husband oh so glad he's a man, 'cause I'm a woman. I did enjoy it. I enjoyed it. I was just born for it. But that didn't mean I was dumb, and it didn't mean that I was restricted, because I made a life for me. All right, boy, I'm getting off track tonight, and I'm trying to stay on track because I got a little prayer practice I'm doing. Okay, and this is a hard song. So we moved from the 60s into the 70s and 80s, and by the 80s, if you were a homemaker, you were embarrassed or ashamed because women had started to go out to work. And you would say, oh, what do you do? And they'd go, oh, well, I'm just a homemaker. I'm just a mom. Just hell. Just hell. Homemakers and mothers are priceless, and the hand that rocks the cradle does rule the world. And think about that now when you're wondering whose hand is rocking that cradle. I know you may not agree with me. That's okay. Oh, talking too much. Okay. So, women were embarrassed to say they were just a homemaker. The reality is, while homemaking and raising children is both rewarding and challenging, it is not required. It is not. If you don't want kids, don't have kids. If you want to do something else, do something else. It's okay. Although I do think that people that don't want to have children should assure that they don't have children by having a procedure that is easily reversed should you decide later you want children. Most people kind of know. You know, when I was a kid, I couldn't play with my dolls. They weren't real enough. I don't know if I'd have courage to have a child today. I don't know. Anyway, so if you want to be a homemaker and a mother full-time, you should have that option. Folks, the false gods of Mammon, which is materialism, and Baal, which is personality and ego, carnality, have taken over us, to such a degree that we have come to actually believe that we must have everyone in the house working. Now, even when that's necessary, I have twins who men, their dads, and they both managed to work it out with having 2 children each, that they either the husband, either the mom or the dad would be home with the kids while the other one went to work. And they did work, they went to school, they did the things they had to do. Yet they never went to get daycare. And I'm not knocking daycare. It is a blessing. And it should be a choice. Today, people think it's not a choice. And then they go spend so much money having their kiddos, being raised by other people, and then they have to pay that person. And then they're too tired to cook dinner, so they have to get dinner out. And then they got to have 2 cars, 2 TVs, the best clothes, because you got to work, you got to have fancy clothes. Okay. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with going to work. Especially if you love your job. Okay. If you don't love your job, I pity you. All righty. One of the most critical things we need to discern is whether we are dealing with personality, which is the ego self, or principle. Principle is that which is eternal and unchanging. It's something you can count on. It's absolute. We've come to the point where personality means the human part in this term, okay? It's our lower nature. Now, a lot of people freak out when I say that our job is to transform our personality. That does not mean, you say, well, wait a minute, I got a good personality. Everyone loves me. Why would I want to get rid of it? You don't want to get rid of it. You want to let it blossom into the fullness that it was meant to be. Okay. Cheryl says, I was a child care provider and I completely agree with you. Sometimes a parent should stay home and take care of their kiddos. Cheryl, I was very nervous as I was saying it because I know you were a caregiver, and we had a conversation about it one time, and I didn't want you to think that I disrespected your profession, because there are times when it is necessary. But it's like Dr. Laura said, if you don't really want your child enough to be there for them, why don't you just get a dog? It's a thought. Some people don't even want to take care of their dogs. Okay, instead of doing the right thing, when we put personality before principle, instead of doing the right thing, which is that which is in alignment with principle, that which is good and healthy for ourselves, our children, our family, our siblings, the whole picture, our country, that we pick self first. We pick self first. When we pick self first, it's like equal. We should be equal. Ourselves, others, only God first, okay? God would be spiritual principle, all that is good, okay? So in other words, we just do what we want and then we justify it, we rationalize it. Do you know what rationalizing is? It's rational lies. It's lying to ourselves and others about our motivation when we do things, or an excuse for doing it. And I'll always say, is that a reason or an excuse? All right. Sometimes when I'm reading this and I'm thinking of people going, like, did she say that? I feel bad because, I can easily be mistaken and misunderstood, but I really felt compelled to write this, and I do mean what I say. Imagine what would happen if we put principle before personality regarding ecology. Okay, you're going to get mad at me on this one. A lot of people are going to get mad at me on this one. Huge numbers of products in stores thumb their noses at environmental concerns. They don't have to have a disclaimer on it that it's not good for good for our planet. They can just say, well, it's recyclable. I got some hard truth for you here, my friends, and that is we make far more plastic waste than we can recycle. Are we willing to make the changes that will let our planet breathe and live and provide for us as it so abundantly has since its creation? But we can't put all the blame on the manufacturers of this stuff because we're buying it. Excuse me. We're buying it, we're using the products, and we're the ones that are throwing them away. I keep a close eye on my recycle bin because I notice how soon it builds up. I try to reuse and reuse and reuse, try to reduce. You know, a lot of times we think, well, I'll recycle it. Recycling's it easy. Rinse it out, and some people don't even do that, and throw it in the trash, in the recycle bin. But like I say, we make more plastic than we can recycle. This is not a personal thing. This is a principle thing. We are destroying our host. Our host is planet Earth. We have the option of being symbiotes, which is someone that lives, oh my goodness, I'm running way over time and I thought it was going to be short tonight. All right, I'm going to run real quick through the rest. I promise no more little side trips. A perfect example are disposable but not recyclable things. One of them is coffee pods sold by Keurig and Dunkin' Donut. These are not recyclable. Read my lips, not recyclable. They are not recyclable because they have coatings, plastic coatings on other kind of plastic. There's two different kinds of plastics. They cannot be separated, and they're there to keep the coffee fresh. The New York Times, in an article dated April 17th, 2016, says, Keurig sells more than 9 billion pods every year. That's Keurig. We're not even talking Dunkin' Donuts or all the other ones. Folgers, they all have them. That would be enough plastic to wrap around the globe 10 times. And that's only in 1 year. Okay? Do you have one of those coffee makers? Are you willing to give it up? If you give it up, what are you going to do? Throw it in the dumpster? Be another part of waste that we cannot recycle in our environment? Now, there is also, you know, French press is really good. Doesn't even use electricity. It works like a dream. What's wrong with a French press? Oh, well, you gotta rinse it out, and it's a mess with all those coffee grounds. Hey, it makes better coffee and no waste. See, these things can be done. All right, let's go and we'll give. So you don't want to throw out your Keurig because you don't want it out there in the environment while you get some other plastic. It's hard to avoid. They have little pods, little refillable pods, so you can use your Keurig. That's what I did when Sammy was still with us, and I'd go stay at her house. They didn't drink coffee, but I had given her my Keurig to make hot chocolate, and but I would use the refillable pods, fill it up, snap it down, made excellent coffee, and I was not making waste. These things are possible. Why do they not get used? Laziness and narcissism. I don't want to. It's too much like work. They're too hard to clean. What a wimpy, lousy excuse not to take care of our planet. Remember, a symbiote works in harmony with its host for the good of both, like the birds that sit on hippopotamus' nose and pick the bugs out. Works for the hippopotamus, works for the bird. Instead, we are like parasites. We are destroying our host, which is our source, our channel of food and everything else. All right. Okay, here's the thing. This is a perfect example of the false god Baal, which is ego, personality, the lower self, at work through laziness and narcissism. And here's the thing. We will all pay the price. We will all pay the price of a destroyed planet. How long will it be till we wake up and start living in harmony with nature? Will it be too late to start over again? How big does the cosmic 2x4 of enlightenment have to get before we wake up? We still don't know who won the election. I know that one candidate is interested in helping the environment, and the other is interested in helping businesses to make more money. Who did you vote for? I don't care. This isn't a political statement. This is something for you to ask yourself. It encompasses everything we talked about tonight. Women's rights, the rights of people of different cultures, fair pay, our environment, our health. So think on these things, my friends. And tomorrow we have a new chapter. We're going into a search for truth. Have you been on a search for truth? We'll talk about that tomorrow. Meanwhile, I so apologize for going over time. I was on a roll, you know. Have a good night. God bless, and I hope I'll see you tomorrow.